Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. Don't forget to make yourself a cup of tea because today we have very interesting stories and one of them is a story about an OP who came to her house and found out her key doesn't work anymore. I'm shocked to learn the reason for her mom evicting OP. It's a wild one, so please subscribe if you haven't and I hope you'll enjoy it. Couple nights ago I was cooking for myself, which is a rare thing these days. Thanks to depression. I was making a pasta bake with a balcony tomato sauce that I wanted to try. It was going well, basically all finished. I was just waiting for the garlic bread to cook in the oven. Now, the extractor fan for my kitchen is on the wall right near the pavement outside. So that's where it vents the heat and wetting it from cooking. I can also hear people's conversations through this hole, like word for word if the road is quiet. Can be funny sometimes. I'm about to check the oven when I hear a knock at my front window and see an angry looking dude staring at me. Like, he was standing so close to my front window, he could see me through the net curtains. I cautiously went to the door in my cooking apron with a large wooden spoon. What was I going to do? Stir him. Entitled Dad, are you cooking? Me, yeah. Some pasta. Can you stop? The smell is making my daughter feel ill. Me, that's not my problem, sir. How dare you? It's making my daughter ill, now stop it right now. Me, sir. I am in my own home, I am allowed to cook whatever I want. If the smell is making someone sick, go away from the smell. Stomps off in a right mood. I returned to the kitchen and continued cooking. From outside I hear through the extractor fan hole. He won't stop, he was very rude to me and threatened me with a rolling pin. Did I? Rolling pin, for making pasta. Sure. The next part was a little hard to hear, he must have walked further up or down the pavement or something as I couldn't hear it all. I think he was on the phone to his poor wife because not long after a woman came hurrying up to my window and tapped on it. Mother, hello. My husband said you made my daughter sick. Me, miss. I was cooking my dinner in my kitchen, your other half then banged on my window saying the smell made your kid ill. Mother said nothing and walked away in silence. Heard nothing from the fan hole. No idea what happened. My food was nice though, a little dry though I was distracted. I bet he wasn't a perfect neighbor for all that time before this happened. And how entitled you need to be to demand your neighbor not to cook in his own kitchen because of a smell. Sounds funny to me. Past. OP. Me, of course My late great father, I roll, BG. Beloved grandmother, CM. Chicken mom, AG. Angry grandfather, MB. Idiot brother. Although I am full grown with my own family, I still bear the scars of my childhood with my narcissistic entitled father. My dad was in the army, which meant that we moved frequently and had only sporadic contact with my extended family. I was about 10 when we returned to the States from a jaunt in Germany and made our way home to see my maternal grandparents. My mom was meek and never would stand up to my dad, let him treat everyone exactly as he chose to. On this particular trip, my dad agreed to accompany us to see my grandparents. He normally didn't come along. He didn't care for my grandparents and the feeling was definitely mutual. This visit was a special occasion because my birthday was due to fall on it. We were staying 3 weeks, which my father had planned very carefully. We didn't have a car and my grandfather always had an extra one that he bought and fixed up for resale. My dad knew that he could talk AG out of the keys during the visit and then he planned on just packing us up in it and leaving at the end of the visit. The day after our arrival, BG planned a big, and I do mean big, dinner to celebrate our return. I was always a favored grandchild, I suspect because she knew how my dad treated me and she pitied me. Anyway, she made a point of telling me that she was making a pecan pie just for me. I was excited, my grandmother was an amazing cook and her pecan pies were legendary. Overheard this and it set in motion the following chain of events. Throws MB and I in my grandfather's car and off we go. We arrive at a rundown grocery store and head inside. He heads to the bakery and asks the clerk what they have on clearance. She told that she was pulling the only pie out of clearance because it had gone past the expiration date. He asks if he can have it since it was going to be thrown away anyway and she shrugs and hands it to him. No charge, she says. He handed it to me, it was butterscotch cream pie. I wasn't familiar with butterscotch, but whatever. As we drive home, he tells me that I am not to touch the pecan pie, but tell BG that I want this pie instead. I start crying, realizing that BG was going to be crushed, that I don't want the pie she made specifically for me. ED snaps at me to stop crying, or he'll give me something to cry about. Dinner, the table is covered with wonderful food. After dinner, BG brings out the pecan pie, glistening and looking delicious. ED asks, saccharine sweet, if she'd be so kind as to bring out the pie he bought. BG shot him a look and grabbed the store pie. She would have shaved her head before she'd served a store-bought pie on her table and dropped it on the table. As she cut the pecan pie, she smiled and went to hand me the first and largest slice. ED snatches it out of her hand, telling her that I had begged him to buy the other pie and that was what I wanted. He grabbed that pie and plopped 2 pieces in front of MB and I. I couldn't look at BG, so I just focused on what was in front of me. The pie was gross. I hadn't had butterscotch before, but it was nasty. MB and I knew that there'd be hell to pay if we didn't eat what was in front of us, so we both choked it down. Fast forward about 4 hours. Dinner is over, and we're all in bed. I was feeling awful. I knew BG was crushed, that I didn't want the pie she'd made for me. Suddenly, I jumped up and bolted for the bathroom, vomiting violently. CM was banging on the door for me to get out because MB was sick and needed to get in. The whole house was suddenly awake, 2 sick kids trying to use one bathroom. BG, who never raised her voice to anyone, turned on ED and told him that it had to be the pie because it was the only thing that only MB and I had eaten. ED said it wasn't anything we ate, we just had a bug. By the next day, we were so ill that AG demanded that ED take us to the hospital. They admitted us both for what they suspected was poisoning. ED was irritated that he was being forced to act like a concerned parent, and he pinched me as hard as he could when we were alone in the room. He also took the pie that remained back to the store and demanded his money back for a pie he'd gotten for free. The clerk wasn't there, and the manager gave him money back for a full-price pie. MB and I were in the hospital for 6 days. It took nearly 6 weeks after that for our appetite to return. My birthday fell during this time. AG threw me a party and grilled out, putting onions on everything, knowing ED hated onions. BG made me a beautiful strawberry cake, mindful that ED was allergic to strawberries. She told him it was vanilla cake and she had put pink food coloring in because that was my favorite color. ED couldn't resist eating half the cake before heading to the ER for shots. When he got back, ED smiled sweetly and said of course it was strawberry, hadn't she mentioned that? My dear sweet grandparents were always on my side. I couldn't really eat any of my birthday dinner that night, but I heard it was delicious. I'm glad to see your family on OP's side, and I liked how OP's grandma avenged this father for her grandchild. He totally got what he deserved for how he treated OP. This all happened around 10 years ago and takes place over the course of the absolute worst months of my life. I had just turned 18 at the time, and thanks to my mom we lost a house that I had lived in my entire life. Almost right after we lost the house, a family friend offered to let us stay at her house with her family since her and her husband had a few extra rooms. We moved into their very large house, and at first things were great. The family consisted of the EPs and their EK who was the same age as me. All of them were understanding and nice at first, offering to let me and my mom stay for as long as it would take for us to get back on our feet. EM even got me my first job working as a volunteer at a bingo hall. It was all under the table kind of money, but I didn't care since it was money in my pocket that my mom couldn't or wouldn't provide me. EPs had been family friends for a very long time and are absolutely enamored with the idea of me and EK getting together and have been ever since we were little. They constantly made comments like, "Look at the beautiful couple, you two look so great together," or "We'll give you lovebird some privacy," whenever we were in the same place together. Despite me stating several times that I didn't like him in that way, they were determined to try to get us to work like some kind of arranged marriage. I think that really fed into EK's ego, because about a month into my stay there is when the first incident happened. We were walking down the hall when he smacked me from out of nowhere. I really freaked out and went off on him, yelling, cursing, and giving him a few shoves. Our parents came upstairs to see what all the yelling was about, and we end up getting separated. I tell my mom what happened, and she responds by telling me it wasn't a big deal and to not rock the boat while we were living there. EK eventually gives some terrible apology to me at dinner, and his dad made some joke about how he's relieved that he's finally taking an interest in girls. Things proceeded to escalate from there. Any chance EK got he would make strange comments or find some way to touch me. Every time I went to his parents it was always hand waved away as boys will be boys, or he probably didn't mean it that way, that he was a really sweet guy deep down and I should get to know him better. On one occasion ED told me that I should be flattered. My mom was content to not do anything, enjoying the freeloading that got to feed her addiction too much and telling me to stop playing hard to get. One day EK put a hand down my shirt as I'm sitting on the couch and I started yelling at him about how I'm sick of him doing stuff like this and to never do it again, but he gave me the most terrifying glare and told me, "Shut up. You live in my house." After that I was so terrified of being alone with him that I would stay after school for as long as I could until I was asked to leave, and if I ever had to go back to the house for any reason, I would just hide in my room with the door locked and wouldn't come out until I knew other people were around, since I didn't know if one day he was just going to force himself on me. Fast forward a few months and I'm told, not asked, that I'm going with EK as his date to his senior prom, which is in a week. EPs are super excited and tell me that we'll have the whole house to ourselves that night after we come back from the dance. I very quickly shut that down and tell them that I'm not going because of how EK treats me, and EPs spend the rest of the day doing everything they can to compel me. First they try telling me money isn't an issue, how they'll pay for my dress and ticket. When that doesn't work they try to guilt trip me, telling me how they ask me for so little and how this is the least I can do and how much EK would love it. Finally, my mom eventually hears about it after she comes home from the casino and she's pissed. She tells me how I need to go, how it's such a big opportunity for the both of us, and how I need to tell the EPs that I changed my mind. I refuse, and the day after EK's prom is over EPs hit me and my mom down for a talk. They start implementing new rules about how they now expect us to pitch in for all the amenities, how we're expected to buy our own food, and how they're going to start charging us for rent. Before all this, they were very adamant about us not paying for anything, wanting us to save money to get back on our feet. Even without my mom spending half or all of her checks at the casino, there was no way for us to afford what they were asking, and they subsequently gave us a month to find our own place and move out. We ended up moving out to live in a sketchy neighborhood with some guy my mom was dating. My mom blames me for the entire thing, saying I blew a golden opportunity for both of us. How I basically threw away a great future, etc. That cut me pretty deeply, and I still get angry thinking about it to this day. Few months later I graduated, but my mom didn't show up to the ceremony. I come back to the house and all my stuff is sitting on the curb next to the trash and had been thoroughly picked through. I found out my key doesn't work anymore and nobody is picking up their phone. End up waiting till about 3 in the morning for them to come back from the casino, and my mom tells me in so many words that I'm my own now. Nothing I say changes her mind, and I eventually pack what little of my stuff is left into my car. I spent the next month or two couch surfing or sleeping in my car while trying to pick up as many days as I could at work. Eventually I managed to save up enough to move into my first apartment with a roommate. I haven't spoken to my mom or the EP since then, but recently my mom left me a voicemail asking if we could talk since she didn't like the way we left things. Since then, she's been blowing up my phone every day. I don't plan on ever taking her call. I wonder if this mom doesn't really understand it was very cruel how she treated OP. Maybe she doesn't care about it at all. I see how she wanted best for her, but she didn't care about OP's feelings at all. When I was 17, I worked as an intern at a jewelry store. I would basically just help customers find jewelry, pay for it, and maintain the register. One Friday night, I was anxious to close because I was going to stay after hours to repair a necklace of mine. It wasn't anything too remarkable to a normal person, just a silver chain with an ebony ring in the center. But the history it had to my family is so important. The story goes that my great-great-great-grandfather, a French woodcarver, created that ebony ring with his own bare hands, carved both his and my great-great-great-grandmother's initials into it, and used it to propose to her. When he went off to war a few years later, he told her to, if he didn't make it back, tie the ring to her favorite silver chain so he could always be near her heart. He never returned, and my great-ex-3 grandmother kept her promise, and it had since become a family heirloom. But anyways, I was just closing up when EM and her actually decent child came in. Me. Good evening. Welcome to Paris Jewelers. How may I help you? EM. Cut the small talk. My daughter needs a perfect necklace for her bat mitzvah and I want to see them. Now. I'm slightly put off by her rude tone, but I assume she's just stressed out and goes to help her. After looking through all of our best necklaces, she's still not satisfied. EM. No. Where's your good jewelry? E. Ma'am, if these selections are not to your liking, I'm sure I can help you find another. EM. I want that one. I look to where she's pointing and see that she apparently wants my necklace, which is clearly on my employee desk and not on the display cases. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's not for sale. It's actually. EM. Don't lie. I want that necklace, so you're going to hand it over. Me. Listen. It's an heirloom. My family values it more than anything. Daughter, leave her alone, mom. I can get another. The mom just dismisses her with a wave of her hand. I'm about to open my mouth in protest, but then my boss walks in. Boss, is there a problem, ladies? EM, your little idiot of an intern won't give me the necklace I want. She threw it behind the desk, just so I couldn't get it. Daughter, mom, you know that's not what happened. Don't lie about. EM, shush. You're hysterical because this girl is being so mean. My boss looks at me, then back at the EM and her daughter. He eventually turns back to me. Boss, can you please show me the necklace in question? I go and get my necklace and show it to him. My boss knows that it is important to me and he turns back to the EM. Boss, is this the necklace you wanted? EM, yes. Boss, then I'm afraid you're mistaken. This necklace is in fact this young lady's property. Now please leave or I will escort you out personally. EM glares at me, but eventually grumbles and leaves. Before she takes off, however, the daughter says she needs to use the restroom. The mom tells her to hurry up before going to wait. The young girl then bursts into tears, apologizing for her mom's behavior and sobbing about how embarrassed she is. My boss and I felt so bad for her that we gave her an inexpensive bracelet for free and said a special mazel tov for her. Poor girl. Wherever you are, I hope you're free from your mother and living your best life. I'm truly surprised that the girl was so nice after being raised by a mother like that. I'm joining in with OP and hoping that girl is really happy with her great normal life without her mother. Well guys, that's it for today. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider subscribing, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. The story is about an entitled woman and her 23-year-old child who was trying to steal OP's reserved seat. Check this out if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.